On today's show, the Nets pick up their first win of the season, 112-103 over the Indiana Pacers, despite a significant injury to Cam Thomas. I'll dive into the performance and what it means for Brooklyn moving forward right now.
You are Locked On Nets, your daily Brooklyn Nets podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome in to the Locked On Nets podcast right here on the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team, the Brooklyn Nets, every single day. I'm Erik Slater, Brooklyn Nets beat reporter for ClutchPoints.com. Thank you for making me your first listen of the day. The show is 100% free on all those great platforms. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Head to FanDuel.com to get started. And on today's show, the Nets finally won a game. They snapped their 7-game losing streak and pick up their first victory in Indiana over a depleted Pacers squad. We got big performances from several players. We also got a significant Cam Thomas injury and some rotation changes from Jordi Fernandez. So I'll dive into all that and what fans should be looking forward moving forward. And joining the podcast now, we got Lucas Kaplan of Nets Daily. And Lucas, Nets pick up their first win of the season, 112-103 over the Indiana Pacers. They're no longer in the cellar of the NBA. They've graduated to just, I guess, the basement or whatever, a step up from that is what you want to call it. But 1-7 on the year. They will not break their own NBA record of 0-18. And before I throw it over to you for takeaways and reaction, I felt like this was just an important game. And I understand it's a tanking season. You still have some people who are probably fixated on that and want them to just lose every game. But there's also people who I think are tired of, the losing. And I've seen some comments and they wanted to see some competitive basketball. I think they also want to see the rookies. We didn't get too much of that, but we got an inspired Nets team playing much harder with much more of a purpose. They pick up the win and they get that monkey off their back. And I think that ultimately that is important. And we've talked about why Jordi Fernandez is not playing really any of the rookie first-round picks besides Jagor Dyman, who barely played in this game. But the reason for that was it seemed like he was trying to keep this from spiraling completely, keep some buy-in amongst the veterans. And, to do so, you have to put out lineups that give the Nets the best chance to compete. And he did that tonight, going very, very veteran-heavy. And they finally win a game, and you saw the reaction from the players. You saw the reaction from Jordi. I do ultimately think, while, it's frustrating not to see any of the rookies playing really, that they did need to pick up a victory sooner or later. Like every another loss, the noise just becomes louder and louder. So they get the monkey off their back with this win. I think it's important, and we'll see how they move forward. But what was your reaction, main takeaway from the win? What do you got for me?
It was great. It was great. It was great to see them all happy and smiling after the game, man. Nobody wants to be 0-4 in the NBA. It's embarrassing, and I don't want to say should have beaten this Pacers team, but going into tonight, knowing the injuries that the Indiana side had, you knew this was at least a winnable game, and they played seriously. They followed a game plan. They looked very connected, and it's a good day, man, to be a Nets fan. You can appreciate an early season win. There's so much time for the rookies to play. I want to see a 2. But 8 out of 82 games is just so tiny. And, you can go back through previous seasons and look at like the standings or the offensive rating leaders after 8 games and to kind of illustrate how much can change. So my overall takeaways were that, it's nice to see. Like we've been on this podcast just talking about how horrific their effort and all this stuff is. You don't want to see that for 82 games, man. So tonight was that's why we play sports, man. It's good to win.
Yeah, it is good to win. And, ultimately, I think last year it was just such a different feel at the beginning of the season because everybody knew it was a tanking season. But the Nets started off the year, 9-10, 9-11, whatever they did. And then every other win, it was like the panic bells were just growing louder. And now we're at the point where it's like they're 0-7. This is clearly one of the worst teams in the league, if not the worst. So it's like you can take some solace and like happiness in some of these wins, as opposed to last year where every win just started to kind of feel like a mini disaster as they continued to pile up. So that is, I feel like it's just a much different feeling compared to last year. And we talked like the importance after this last game and after the last game against Minnesota, which was like a little bit better, but they still got blown out. Just the importance of Jordi putting out some lineups with guys who are actually going to play hard. And he made a change to the starting lineup in this one, and he went with a new look front line. MPJ came back from personal reasons, but he keeps Noah Clowney in the starting lineup, and he removes Tyrese Martin, and they go with Terrence Mann at point guard and then Cam Thomas, who exited with a hamstring injury. We'll talk more about that later. But Mann, Thomas, and then MPJ, Noah Clowney, Nick Claxton goes with a bigger front line, presumably to try to bolster the team's defense, which has just been horrendous. And it worked. They let up 19 points in the first quarter. You were like, great job. Then they let up 41 in the second quarter. And you're like, all right, never mind. And then they finished the game strong. So this was a better defensive effort. They held the Pacers to, near 40% shooting, if not below it, on the exact number. And it must be said, this is a skeleton crew, corpse of a Pacers team playing without, obviously, Tyrese Halliburton, Andrew Nembhard, TJ McConnell, Benedict Mathurin, Obi Toppin, Johnny Furphy, even Quentin Jackson, who just had a big game, is hurt now. They were legitimately playing. I think the stat was 6 of their top 7 scorers from last season were out in this game or something along those lines. And so you got to throw in that caveat, but the Nets are not exactly a world beater either. So
they did. They gave up an 81 offensive rating in the half court, and they gave up an 105 offensive rating to the Hawks without Trey. I mean, you don't want to put anything past this Nets defense after the first 7 games of the year. They and I'm sure you saw the same thing, but they were much timelier on rotations. Their ball pressure was better. In transition, the transition defense is still pretty poor, but they talked more. They just looked like a real NBA defense, and that is something that you can glean, I think, regardless of the opponent. Looking connected, looking like we can tell what you work on in practice. You can gauge those things if you're playing the Nuggets or if you're playing, the skeleton Pacers team, I think.
Yeah, and this is still a Pacers team, even though they're skeleton. They still have, Pascal Siakam out there, very high-level player. They have Andrew Nembhard. They have some other guys who can play. It's a team that still has NBA players, very depleted, but the Nets, just the effort from top to bottom was a complete 180 from what we've seen in some prior games. And I want to start off talking about Michael Porter Jr. because I've said on this podcast that I feel like the effort of a team starts from the top down, and it starts with the leaders. And, people have given me flack about saying MPJ and Cam Thomas are leaders. And I've clarified, I'm not saying they're, suited to be leaders, but they're the top paid guy on the team and also the most ball dominant guy on the team who leads the offense every night. So, de facto, they are leaders. And in this game, Cam Thomas went out, but MPJ, I thought this was his best effort game of the season. I thought the hustle that he showed in this game was just a stark contrast to everything else that we've seen. We didn't know what was going on with the personal reasons, but he played hard in this game. We saw defensively, possessions where he falls asleep or is out of position, but playing harder for the most part. He had a tip-in on an offensive rebounds for a layup to beat the buzzer at the first half. He was, crashing the offensive boards, giving the Nets extra possessions. He forced a turnover out of the halftime break in the backcourt that actually led to Rick Carlisle getting ejected, and then he hit a 3 right after it. So he just did a lot of things that I feel like the energy started with him, and it permeated down just from the leader down through the rest of the group. And then offensively, he does what he does. He had 32 points, 11 rebounds, 3 assists, 10 of 20 from the field, 4 of 11 from 3, and 8 of 11 from the free throw line, and still taking just a bunch of completely just audacious, shots. But he's, he can hit them. He's an unbelievable shot maker. I said this about him after one of those games where he had a really huge shooting night on crazy shot diet, that he's the craziest shot maker that you're going to see in a Nets uniform, maybe outside of Kevin Durant. He comes up short in a lot of other areas, but tonight I think he played his most well-rounded game of the season, and I think it really, fueled the whole Nets team.
Without Cam Thomas on the floor, he really makes sense on this team. There's just kind of a redundancy, I think, with CT there, but he is not going to self-create so much of his own offense where it's an impediment to whatever else you're trying to accomplish. But he's truly a ridiculous shot maker and
insane.
Hey, It's bananas. Like I like when he gets a shoulder into someone on the drive and then like sprints backwards into like a fading 19-footer.
He does that all the time. Like that's almost his signature move is like, the bump and then let me retreat as fast as I can to gain space to get this tough shot off. But
he's doing a little decel, and like, listen, the fact that he tried to one of the dunks he attempted and got fouled on, the first one, and like lands on his back. The fact that his back has been through all that it has, and he can do that and pop right up. And listen, not to denigrate Lloyd Pierce and the rest of the Pacers assistant coaches too much, but him getting Rick Carlisle ejected might have saved the game because we know how good of a coach Rick is.
Yeah, probably the best coach in the league. Like I would say, he's definitely up there.
He's up there.
I mean,
yeah.
But I'd say with MPJ, he gets. There's a lot of jokes about him. Some of them write themselves with some of the stuff he does off the court, and then the shots that he takes on the court.
And the defense, to be clear, even when he's trying on defense, just to be clear, it is still like really, really bad. But the effort makes a difference.
Yeah, I mean, I think like with the level of shot maker that he is, with the size that he has, if he were to just give consistent effort like this, on a near nightly basis, I mean, he just has the tools to be an impactful player. Like the defense obviously is tough, but he does have the size. Like he has some flashes of like weak side rim protection. He can rebound. He had 17 rebounds last game, 11 tonight. And the shot making is just insane. And if you get him in the right role on any given night, like it can give you a shot. So I think it was nice to see him give that kind of effort and to see it permeate. I think start from him, from the leader, down through the rest of this Nets team. And the rest of this Nets team, we got some really high-level performances. We got performances from Nick Claxton and Noah Clowney that I would dare to say, for Claxton, best performance we've seen from him in a long time. And for Clowney, I think the best performance of his NBA career. So what went into those and what were our top takeaways? We'll get into that. We continue Locked On Nets after a quick break. Guys, let's be real. No one starts a business for the joy of calculating tax withholdings or managing payroll spreadsheets. That's where Gusto comes in to take the stress out of payroll, HR, and benefits so you can focus on running your business and supporting your team. Gusto is the all-in-one remote-friendly payroll and HR platform that makes managing your team simple, transparent, and fast. Whether you're hiring, onboarding, or paying employees, Gusto helps you do it all from one place without the hassle or hidden fees. Get unlimited payroll runs for one monthly price, which means no surprise charges at the end of the month. Gusto's automated tools like offer letters, onboarding materials, and direct deposits save you hours each week, and knowing you can reach certified HR experts anytime gives you real peace of mind. Try Gusto today at gusto.com/LockedOnNBA and get 3 months free when you run your first payroll. That's right, 3 months of free payroll at gusto.com/LockedOnNBA. One more time, that's gusto.com/LockedOnNBA. Coming back from the break on today's Locked On Nets episode, recapping Brooklyn's first win of the season with Lucas Kaplan of Nets Daily. And Lucas, Nick Claxton and Noah Clowney played a massive role in this win against the Pacers. And let's start with Nick Claxton because he's been on a mini tear, I'd say, for the last few games. And after that letdown season last year, dealing with that back injury that he really looked like a shell of himself. The arrow since that 2022-23 season had kind of just been firmly pointing down. And these last few games, I mean, he looks like his old self. I mean, tonight, 18 points, 10 rebounds, 6 assists, 3 steals, 2 blocks, 5 of 9 from the field, 8 of 10 from the free throw line. Like, that is one of the best stat lines that you're ever going to see from Nick Claxton in an NBA game. And it felt that impactful. Like, he was all over the court. He looked springy. He looked vibrant. He was covering tons of ground, like just defensive rebounds where he's out on the perimeter on the three-point line and then just flying in and like coming over everybody and grabbing boards. Offensively, the driving just continues to look like it's at a pretty high level. And I just think it was all around, 6 assists. He had 7 assists last game, 6 assists this game. I think that's the most in a 2-game stretch in his career. So getting it done all around. And with Claxton, as I always have thought, I think it just starts with the motor. When he looks healthy, when he has this level of commitment, this level of motor, he makes such a difference. And I think you like Michael Porter Jr. With him, he even maybe more so Claxton, you really see the team start to feed off of his energy. So what do you think of that performance and the stretch that Nick is putting together?
He just looks so much more comfortable with that role in this offense where he's dictating a lot of the actions from the top of the key with the ball in his hand. And they rely on him to self-create a lot of offense. Not a huge percent of their offense, but when he's at the top of the key and no one springs open off the ball, it's like, hey, you need to go make something happen right now with the ball in your hands. And the drives look good. The screening is better. And I think because of how engaged he is on offense, that, everyone talks about the defense leads to offense. Your effort starts there. With Nick, it's almost kind of like the opposite, I feel like, because when he's touching the ball that much and when he's making good plays, I feel like you see it correlate more to the other end. And yeah, it's just, this is really, I think, the ideal start for him. There's some defensive things to clean up, but I mean, he's just been so valuable to their offense. And tonight was another strong showing against a guy in Jay Huff who's, no pushover.
Yeah, and I think with Claxton, like you keep hearing the things about him. Like we saw what he can do in that 2022-23 season. We know what he's capable of defensively. We know offensively, like the flashes he's shown. The questions have just been like, is this all he is? Like, is he going to be able to maintain that level of play, or could he even get better? And I think this game, you saw that two-way versatility. You saw him impacting things on the defensive end of the floor. You saw the rebounding offensive also. And then I'd also say, just the offensive stuff that he's doing. You just said it, like relying on him to create some things. The drives look like pretty fluid. And even when they get a little clunky or awkward, he's able to use his size and the force he's generating downhill to generate some space and make some decent things happen at the rim. He even, I tweeted out, he pulled out the Pinoy step going to the basket. That was a pretty crafty move. He finished some tough hook shots that he hasn't in recent seasons. So I just think a good performance from Claxton. And these are the games where it seemed like Day'Ron Sharpe has been nipping at his heels the past few years. And then every once in a while, it feels like Nick pulls out a game where it's okay, Day'Ron just doesn't have the capability to do some of these things. And we need Nick to show that consistently.
It's really early to look at stats. It's only been 8 games, but the fact that he is doing more than he ever has on offense, and he is rocking the lowest turnover rate of his career and the highest assist rate, a lot of that is because of the way Jordi's designed this offense. He's not Nikola Jokic. He's not making these incredible reads. I kind of tweeted this, but if Jokic is Patty Mahomes, Nick is a functional system QB. But that matters. The fact that he can look at a back cut that's not there and then hit a pop that is there. The fact that if both those things are taken away, he can be like, all right, let me try to get to the hole. It just feels like a really good use of his skill set, that wiry, coordinated athlete he is, even if he's not the strongest guy. And, whether it's in Brooklyn or somewhere else, this version of him is really valuable to a good team. There's some defensive rebounding concerns. He annoys me when he goes for blocks that he doesn't have a chance at, and then the guy behind him gets an offensive rebound. But
so your ultimate pet peeve, you hate that.
I hate it. I hate because Nick especially, because I like him so much, but he really can't afford to do that because his defensive rebounding is already under the microscope because of his thin frame. That being said, listen, he's going to help these guards, these rookie guards, if he continues to play like this, because he can add something to the offense. He's not just reliant on catching lobs anymore.
Yeah, and we just saw there's been a lot of trade talk with Claxton, obviously, because of him being the longest tenured net. He's been here forever. He's just the last vestige of all these past eras. And they obviously are going with a little bit of a younger, rebuilding timeline. And I'd say he's young enough to be a part of this next Nets iteration. But if not, talking about trade possibilities, I've said, I've been pretty firm on my stance that he's on a descending contract that's going to pay him between 11 and 13.5% of the salary cap in the last 2 years. And for a team looking for a starting center, that's not at all an exorbitant price. So if there's a team that has a need, if thinks that he fits well in their system, I could definitely see him, being an option for some teams. And, do the Nets want to roll with him or move off him? It's going to be a storyline to monitor as the season progresses, especially if he keeps stacking performances like this, and they might have some options. But the other front court piece, part of this new look starting front court that we saw, Noah Clowney, I would say the best game of his career. I don't even know if it's close. 17 points, 4 rebounds, 1 assist. 6 of 9 from the field and 2 of 5 from 3, and just did a lot of things that I frankly just think like we would not have seen from him last season, or we did not see from him last season. In terms of, the whole question about Noah was, we know he can shoot decently from 3, or he's appeared to. Can he do anything else offensively? And in this game, we saw 2 drives to the basket where he did things that clearly have been a focus this offseason. Like we talked to him and the Nets coaching staff about it, driving into the lane, bumping guys off of their spots, using the added weight that he has, getting to 2 feet and finishing. And on one of them, throwing down a really like monstrous dunk. Also, 2 of 5 from 3, hit back-to-back threes to give them the lead in the third quarter, like timely clutch shots. And then on like the possession of the game to ice it, he's handling the ball at the top of the key and like spins off Pascal Siakam and hits a kick out to Tyrese Smart. And I like joked on Twitter, like the Nets have found their new point guard. They got Noah Clowney just handling the rock 40 feet away from the basket. But really good performance from Noah. And I think a lot of development areas that have been major question marks leading up to this.
Well, I've always felt that he like sees what's going on, and he's shown some like drive and kick ability in his first couple of years, but it's the driving itself that's been the problem, not necessarily like the kicking out. And, I posted this. I give him a lot of credit because it's one thing to add strength over a summer, but it's another to change the way that you're attacking and driving and use it and hit people with your shoulder and your chest. Like he's trying to initiate contact. And, that's why I said last time, like it's worth running him out there and letting him play through this stuff because that's not always going to go well. But today he dunked on someone. He got to 2 feet. He hit a floater. He had an isolation, like just a straight up isolation in the fourth against Jay Huff. Like, man, Zaire Williams said last year, he's like, bro, you could be better than Giannis. And maybe we shouldn't have laughed at that. I mean,
yeah, maybe you look dumb for laughing at that, Lucas. But I was cracking up at that play that you just referenced against Jay Huff, where it's like, not even cracking up. Like, it was just great to see because it's something that I tweeted, like, we just would never have seen that from Noah last season. And like, was it the most high-level move? No. But he got the ball with like 12 seconds left on the shot clock. He was clearly looking around, like, where do I get this to? MPJ was on the same side, like back cut, couldn't get it to him. And he looked with like 8 seconds left, and he was like, all right, I'm going to take this to the hoop. He went with the right-handed dribble, like a little hezzy, and then finished like a half-fading hook off the glass. And I'm like, that's nice to see from Noah, a guy who, we had questions about whether or not he can even put the ball on the floor and do anything productive. And he had 3 drives in this game that were really like high-level plays. And then 4, if you add in the play and the assist that iced the game, hitting Tyrese Martin for a 3. So really good Noah Clowney performance, a third-year player that I think the evaluations are kind of all over the place because he dealt with the injuries last year. And then this year, started off really poor. But I will say that, he was playing kind of sparingly, or like he was getting minutes, but off the bench, like not too solidified. And now 2 games in the starting lineup with really extended run, he's looked the best that he has all season. So real positive for Noah Clowney. But we also need to talk about Cam Thomas went out with an injury in this game. What was it? What is that going to look like moving forward? And also Jagor Dyman, who played not very much minutes at all. So we'll talk about what we saw from him and what we are expecting moving forward when we close out Locked On Nets after a quick break. The NBA is back, and there's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you missed the start of a game or just want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score next to fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. It keeps every game exciting, especially when your team's making that late push. Right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head to FanDuel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Coming back from the break, closing out today's Locked On Nets episode, talking with Lucas Kaplan. And Lucas, we got to hit on Cam Thomas's injury and also Jagor Dyman. And let's start with Jagor because, this was another game where Jagor's minutes were pretty cut. He played 13 minutes. And I said at the top, this was Jordi Fernandez. It seemed like going with the lineups that were going to give the Nets the best chance to win. He was really going for it. The Nets needed a win, it seemed like, to just keep some sanity in the locker room. And that didn't really involve Jagor because Jagor showed some flashes, but he struggled in this game. 13 minutes, had no points, 3 rebounds, 2 assists, no turnovers, which is nice to see. But he was 0 of 6 from the field and 0 of 5 from 3. And the shooting, we've hit some really hard Jagor regression. He's 3 of 20 from 3 over his last 5 games after starting 7 of 11. I'm not too worried about that, but obviously not great to see. But it's just pretty clear right now that I think Jagor is pretty far away from, operating the offense at like a high level where they're going to be winning games. But I will say that we did see some flashes from him. Like he had another really nice pick and roll rep in this game where he came off the screen. He gave J Huff a hesitation, got downhill, like elevated like he was going up for a layup. And at the very last second, like whipped a pass across the court to Tyrese Martin for a corner three. And like, that's the one possession. Like that's all I need just to see that possession and be like, okay, like that is the really impressive stuff that Jagor is capable of. He just needs to get to a place, I feel like physically and technically, where he can, put himself in those positions consistently.
Yeah, that's why Jordi always talks about the setups. You know what I mean? Like his screen usage was better, more patient today. Also, shout out to Nick. I think he's been setting some better screens. I don't think it was him on that play, but you just want him to keep playing. And I think he forced another 2 or 3 deflections today, right? Like,
yeah, he did.
You're seeing him look a little bit less overmatched on the defensive end just because of his length. And guys that see the floor like that on offense are typically just good anticipatory athletes, and that leads to deflections. The closeouts, again, look very slow, but you just want to see him keep playing. And that drive, if he can get into a situation where the defense is compromised, you trust him to make the right read. And that's really all you want to see. The shooting, it's so early. It's so early. And it's so early. It's not great that the misses were way off, but I don't know. It's really going to be too early to comment on the shooting for a long time.
Yeah, I think that some of the shots, it looks like he's forcing a little bit because it's so hard for him to get some shots off in other areas that it's like, if I'm open from 3 whatsoever, like I'm putting this up because I feel like I need to get some shots up. But I see some people panicking. Like Jagor doesn't look great. None of the rookies have looked great. But I would say with Jagor is that we knew he was a developmental prospect. And, Jordi and the coaches have been pretty clear, and I think we've been clear, that Jagor and some of these other guys are just going to need to get to a place physically where it's a baseline that they can start to build off of that, because they're not like a Dylan Harper or a VJ Edgecombe or a Cooper Flagg where they have these NBA ready bodies where they can just come in and compete. Like Jagor and Nolan, and I'd say, maybe some other guys are going to have to get to just a level where it'll allow them to do some other things that, will accentuate their skill sets. And he's not there right now, but it's, 8 games out of however many. You'd like to see Jagor playing more and doing some more things, but I think we will as the year progresses. And the flashes, there have been some flashes over these last 2 games, which is nice to see. But closing it out, we got to talk about Cam Thomas, because Cam went out in this game, and it's a pretty worrisome injury because it was early in the first quarter. He tried to do a step-back jumper. He looked like he tweaked his left hamstring, and he was promptly ruled out by the Nets. And that is the same hamstring that Cam strained 3 times last season and limited him to 25 games. So, and he did it on step-backs, I think 2 out of those 3 times. So same move here, same hamstring. That's very worrisome to me, at least for him. For the Nets, ultimately, does it make that much of a difference? I think it will impact their ability to compete and do some certain things, or maybe we actually have to have a discussion there. But it's worrisome for Cam, I would say, especially during a contract season.
Yeah, and I mean, we asked him about his physique at the end of last year and the beginning of this year. He very noticeably bulked up to start last season. Soft tissue injuries, right? 3 times. He said he wasn't really worried about it moving forward, that it's a freak accident. And I'm not going to sit here and try to speculate whether or not he's doing something physically to cause these. He looks a little bit slimmer this year. He's looked a little bit faster. It seems like it's just terrible luck. But yeah, it's not what you want to see in a contract year. That being said, it might be better for the rookies behind him to get some more guards in there. It feels like because of the redundancy with him and MPJ that it doesn't necessarily put a big wrench into the rotations that much, but we'll see. It could also, they reported it as tightness. It could really just be a little bit tight and he doesn't miss too long, although who knows how likely that is.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. With a hamstring like that
Yeah.
and with having 3 injuries last season, we don't know the severity of it, but I don't know. Like it's very worrisome in terms of like his ability to stay on the court and remain on the court, because I now feel like we'd kind of put those hamstrings in the rear view, and now this happens again. And now I feel like it's kind of anytime he gets on the court, you're like, at any moment, is this left hamstring going to become an issue again? And I do think it's interesting for the Nets in terms of their lineups, because, Cam obviously is their, best off, or I don't know, MPJ is a really good offensive player. Cam's their best on-ball player by a lot, but it is a conversation. We don't have that much time. I think we had like 3 or 4 minutes left, but when he's in the game, he has the ball so much that when he's not in the game, it's just such a stark contrast to, it's such a big difference. And you see a lot more other guys getting involved. And like, I've been really low on what Cam Thomas has shown to start this season. I think people just think that I'm just a hater at this point, but I think they're more fun to watch when he's not on the court. And I'm like, I'm not saying that they have a better chance to win without him because they have such little shot creation. They just beat like the skeleton Pacers, but the ball just moves so much more, and so many other guys get to do so many more things that I'm not sure like how much it really benefits them to have him on the court, especially given the fact that he's going to be an unrestricted free agent and is probably gone. Like, that was the whole point entering the season. I said after he took the QO, like, they don't really have any incentive to play him. And it's not like he's this guy that's making other people better.
It's also year 5. It's not like it's not like he's a total unknown. I think there are still things that he can improve upon, but when Cam Thomas is playing over his 5-year career now, and I know he didn't play much those first couple of years, you know what you're going to get minus some pick and roll reads. Like, what the offense and defense is going to look like from him. And the Nets just are at a point where they don't really need to keep pursuing that angle, especially because I don't think this partnership is lasting more than the rest of this year at the most. Now, him getting injured stinks for him and like for all of his teammates who rely on him to do a lot of the on-ball scoring when he's on the court. But in terms of his impact on this team, we really haven't seen any evidence that it's going to be a major blow to either their chances of winning or the way they do things, which sounds harsh to say about a guy that's averaging over 20 points a game, but I mean, that's the truth, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, it's like somebody could probably clip this out, us saying this, and there's going to be several Nets games if he's not playing. The offense looks like unwatchable, and
yeah,
it looks
and they have nobody.
This.
They have nobody to bail them out with 10 seconds on the shot clock. Like, you do miss that in certain settings.
Yeah, and that's going to happen. But I will say, like, I looked at the on-off numbers yesterday. The Nets offense, they played I think they played like 220 minutes with Cam on, like 130 with him off. Their offense was better with him off the court. I know that's more minutes with Cam on, but like, their offense is better in terms of offensive rating with him off the floor, which I think some people might find crazy. But if that's the case, and he's not impacting the game in any other areas, and all these other guys, a lot of which are developmental, get to do all of these other things when he's not on the floor or have to, just because they don't have that safety blanket, I don't really view it as that much of a negative. But for him, it stinks. Like, he was the 29th or 27th pick in the draft. He's busted his butt. He's gotten to a place where he is going to have an NBA career for a long time, which you can't say about a lot of 27 picks. And I'd like to see him get paid. Like, I think we all want to see Cam get paid and you'll benefit and get like that life-changing contract. We got to close it out. We could do a whole nother episode on this, but Cam turning down that 2-year, $30 million deal with the team option, I know that's like way off of what he was looking for, but I don't think he's really had a good start to the season. And now another hamstring injury. I said at the time, I thought that was going to end up, looking like a mistake, at least financially. And it hasn't been a good start for him in that regard.
We'll see. It's very early. You never know. So much could change, but I think it's fair to say that stinks. And the last point I would make is that, you can look at the on-off data from this year or the previous 4 years of his career, even the seasons without Kyrie and KD in the starting lineup.
I think it sticks out the most this year because it's like Cam is the only offensive guy, and they're so bad outside of him. Yet the offense is still better with him off the floor, but. I digress. But Lucas, that's all we got. Appreciate you taking the time as always. Nets got on the board with the win. Good to see it. And we got a lot more coming up. So we'll have you back on to talk the show. But yeah, thank you, man. Appreciate you coming on. That does it for today's Locked On Nets episode. Hope you guys enjoyed the talk with Lucas. If you do not already, make sure to subscribe to Locked On Nets on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts. Also, if you enjoy the content, take a second right now, hit subscribe, smash the like button, leave a comment, leave a 5-star review. Anything you could do to engage is much appreciated. But the Nets are going to be back on Friday for another game and then heading on Sunday to Madison Square Garden. So I have coverage of all that and more when I'm back tomorrow talking more Brooklyn Nets basketball.